Let's hear it from our journalists, everybody. Thank you. And I think I'm still one, just about. Let's hear it for Nate Lanxon from Bloomberg. Yes. Parmy Olson from Wall Street Journal. Michael Stothard from Sifted, whatever that is. And Shona Ghosh from Business Insider. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, well, it's fantastic. Thank you so much. Have you ever seen so many journalists in one place? Not me, unless it's in a media room. How are you guys going? How's it been? How's your year been, Shona?
Stressful.
Stressful. What was stressing you out this year? Was it Cambridge Analytica or something?
Cambridge Analytica, US-China trade war, SoftBank. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Nate, how about Bloomberg? Bloomberg's a legendarily stressful place.
It's very, very relaxed. I'm very...
Shh. Guys.
Awake.
Shh. If you want to chat outside, whatever, it's fine. Cool.
I forgot what you asked me now. What did you ask me?
How's your year been?
Oh, my year. My year's been very good. I was excited to hear e-scooters mentioned just now because I arrived on one. So I'm very excited about those, despite the fact that
they're still illegal though in London, aren't they?
A grey area.
A grey area. How many people did you kill on the way here, on the pavement?
To date, I'm very proud to say I have killed 0 people.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Have you been to Paris lately?
Yes, I know. It's
a nutty place.
It's different.
The e-scooters.
It's very different there, yes.
But Michael, you're the new kid on the block with Sifted. Welcome to the party. You were previously at the FT, right? Was it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Fantastic. So what's it like running a blog instead of being at a newspaper? Do you like blogging? I do.
Yeah, it's a lot more hectic, and you can actually see how many people are reading your stories, which is a bit more dispiriting a bit unnerving compared to the FT, where you just sort of put them out there and forgot about it. Yeah. This slightly less forgiving, but no, generally very good.
And but you guys are doing some great coverage. You're doing sort of profiles and what have you. Quite a lot of sort of profile stuff of ecosystems.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to do kind of in-depth reporting from like all the way across Europe, and try and do more like outside the big hubs, and also do more kind of super early stage stuff, which can be quite hard to cover because sometimes you're looking at a company and you're thinking like, why am I choosing this one? It's tiny and random. Like, why am I trying to pick winners with this company that has 1 employee and no revenue? So it's like a bit challenging, like reporting-wise. You sometimes feel it's a bit weird.
Hold the mic.
Sorry, yeah. You sometimes feel you're reporting on random stuff, but on the other hand, I think it's cool and important to be giving a voice to some like early stage people in Latvia and not just writing about, the bigger players in the bigger hubs that we've all heard of. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at Sifted, but it is slightly early days because we launched in February. Everyone sign up to our newsletter.
And good advert. And at the opposite end of the spectrum with Wall Street Journal, do you often have to say to these startups, terribly sorry, but we only covered listed companies and things like that?
We do cover startups, but sometimes it is a lot of saying no. I was at Forbes up until about 3 months ago, and we spent a quarter of the year putting together the 30 under 30. I'm sure some people here have been connected to that. That is extremely stressful to put that together, but it's really interesting.
Hoping to put myself forward next year.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the Journal, like most of the readers are fingers crossed. Yeah. Most of the readers of the Journal are American. In the United States. So anything we write very much has to have a U.S. perspective or some kind of focus, or we have to try and frame it in a clever way to get past our editors.
How about Business Insider, and what are the sort of things that are getting your goat these days that you guys like to focus on? Occasionally Business Insider does this thing where it goes after somebody, doesn't it? You really go after somebody. I love it when you do that. I
feel like all publications will, as you term it, go after a company if there's any sign of wrongdoing.
I remember a lot of us were going after Blipper, weren't we? remember Blipper?
Who was that? Who went after
who
them?
was going
Who went
after Blipper? I don't know. Somebody was going after Blipper. We believe that they were full of shit, I think, to use a technical term.
You said it, not me, Mike.
Apparently they were full of shit. They were doing a VR thing, and you held it up, and nobody was using the app, but they raised this ton of money.
I think stories like Blipper are actually quite rare, and Blipper in particular, I don't want to extend this to all companies, but I spoke to someone not long after Blipper, which was an augmented reality company, if you're not familiar with it, that raised a lot of money and then slowly collapsed for various reasons. But a lot of people felt quite pessimistic about what it said about startups and venture capital backing. But actually, Blipper didn't raise from that many venture capital backers. So if anything, I said to sources who were feeling a little downhearted by stories like that, actually the ecosystem here is quite good at filtering out companies which may not deserve super valuations and raising lots of money. I feel, having said that SoftBank coming into the mix does change things slightly, and that lots of companies now have very high valuations and not so much by way of proof of the business model. So that alters things slightly. But actually, the ecosystem is pretty healthy.
We've often, from the TechCrunch perspective, we've often been on the other side of the fence and being kind of like super bullish. And it's kind of our culture came from, you know what? So what, they've raised $1 billion and they don't have a product. They'll win, you know, we don't mind. And we would kind of go, you know, that's fine, you know, maybe the product doesn't work, but they'll figure it out. It was more kind of, you know, entrepreneur friendly, I think, where the tech culture came from TechCrunch.
I can relate to that from when because I reported in San Francisco for 2 years, and the atmosphere out there is exactly like that. You kind of buy into it, and like those huge numbers are getting raised left, right, and center, but it's just the norm. You kind of get to a point where people stopped questioning it.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe, do you think, Nate, that that the culture is flipping around now? We're sort of poking around and sort of kicking the tires on these companies a bit more closely now that the heady days of old are slightly gone? Or are they still here with us?
I think they're still here. I mean, I think Europe seems to be a lot more nimble, you know, in what it does with its money, with that startups, that is, in particular, VC-backed. I don't want to talk about scooters for a second time, but it's becoming an obsession. I'm really sorry. But there's a big difference between what you see the likes of Bird and Lime, who've raised hundreds of millions of dollars in the US, you know, plastered these products all across cities. And you look at the companies that were mentioned on stage earlier, like Tier and Voy and others, and they are doing a very similar strategy now, but for a hell of a lot less money, and seem to be working. Quite a lot of them are profitable in a lot of the markets that they work in, despite having much less of a fiscal launchpad, let's say, to get there. Yeah.
And Michael, in your you guys actually doing quite a lot of continental European coverage, aren't you? What do you guys see? What sort of sticks out for you in your coverage when you're looking at the companies in continental Europe?
I think what was mentioned is the personalized healthcare. I mean, if you look at the numbers, after fintech and SaaS, healthcare gets by far the most investment in Europe. And I think we've seen like one new category over the last few years in kind of femtech products, you know, Clue and Natural Health, and, you know, these companies have created a whole new 40 billion category that didn't exist 10 years ago. But I think over the last year or two, we're seeing a really interesting trend in like men tech, if you can call it that. You know,
what is men tech?
Well, I mean,
yeah, I'd love to know about this as well.
Companies like Legacy, which is about sperm freezing. There was a paper a few years ago about the decline in male fertility, and it sort of kicked off this like new area, really. There's Hims in America, which I think has raised 100 million.
Yeah. Yes,
and then there's also Cool Men, which is about like cooling your balls. And there's also, I think, a company with the best name ever, which I think it's called chillmyballs.com. And it makes products to, you know, chill my balls.
And so what's the actual aim of this, by the way?
Sorry. just because it's nice. No, because you're more
Welcome
fertile.
to the Europas.
You're more fertile
Right.
with
Right.
chilled balls.
Right. The sperm is swimming more freely.
Yeah, so there's been a
Right.
50% decline in male fertility rate since 1980 or whatever it is, and no one really knows why.
Yeah.
But it's not just a female issue, it's a male issue as well, and freezing your sperm and cooling your balls are two ways to get around it. But it's a whole new category, It sounds ridiculous now, but just like period tracking apps, etc., this stuff in 10 years' time becomes a whole new thing that no one had ever even thought of.
Amazing.
So we're seeing a lot of cool stuff on the continent along those lines.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
No one has invented yet, or seemed to bother in this category, a male contraceptive pill. That seems like something that probably should have existed before now.
Yeah. Well, there's a new trial on this, I gather. So we'll watch this space. There's a whole stuff going on. Nice to see men tech happening as well as fem tech. Lastly, starting with you, Michael, and going this direction. Let's cap off. What are some of the tips you can give startups when they're trying to contact you, and the mistakes they make, and the funny things that happen? Let's hear it. And how can they do it better when they're trying to deal with the press?
Don't try to sell a story. Just try and tell me something that you would also tell your mate at the pub, because that's definitely going to be more interesting than what you think is a story.
Good point, Nate.
There's no good answer to that at all that I can give, at least other than speaking purely personally. I think that it's different for everybody. It's mostly based on relationships. Have coffee, get to know each other. It's a lot like dating, so I've heard. I haven't dated for a while because I'm married, just in case my wife is watching the live stream. It's not why I'm here. It's not why I'm talking about male contraception.
I love the way you put the pauses in that sentence.
Thank you. Yes. Simple answer. Get coffee, relationships. The world's moving to AI and machines, so it's one thing that we probably need to keep on a meaty level, by which I mean human flesh.
Human space.
Got a bit clinical.
Yes, meat space, I think the geeks call it.
Thank you, meat space, that's what I was thinking of.
Parmy, how about you? Do you get time to meet any of these companies, or no?
Totally. I would say coffees are great, but before that, if you're going to send a pitch, make it really short. Try and just say it in 2 sentences. I get a lot of pitches by email that are super long, and I get the feeling they're just copy-pasted from whatever is being sent to lots of other journalists, which is fine, but I just probably won't read it. So if you can say it in 2 sentences, that is probably more likely that I'll read it and pay attention.
Right.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with Nate that journalists are quite elusive creatures who are extremely bad at answering their emails. But generally, if you can find a way to persuade a journalist to meet you for coffee, perhaps you've got a really famous investor or your product's really interesting. Ideally, you sort of won't be on the way to developing a product, but you'll actually have something nailed down that is, world-changing in some way. We do have a story that we need to sell to our readers, so ideally you'll come to us kind of with that really amazing idea or backer or whatever that we can then talk about. So I think approaching journalists for a coffee, trying to build that relationship is probably the best way.
That's very good advice. Thank you. And from my end, all you have to do is go to bit.ly/pitchmikebutcher. That's it. And fill out the form. And then I might read it one day. Right. Thank you very much, everybody. To our journalists, everybody. Love journalists. Thanks very much, everyone.